rebel without a cause. The devil. In mythology, he is horned, red-skinned, with a pointed tail and a pitchfork. Aside from imagination, he is in actuality a mighty angel. Yet he is completely evil. He hates God and all that is good and is bent on destroying everything that Jesus Christ stands for. But he was not always this way. Everything God has ever created is good. Note. See Genesis chapter 1, especially verses 4, 10, 12, 18, 21, 25 and 31. Although he created everything that exists, God did not create a devil, he created a perfect, good angel named Lucifer. Note in the Ezekiel 28:12-19 passage that God repeats 3 times that Lucifer was created perfect. And note, as hard as it is to imagine, the devil was once highly respected and loved by all. Full of beauty and wisdom, he was called Lucifer, which means light bearer, or the one who brings light. Note, this is how Isaiah 14:12-14 records Lucifer's fall. Quote, "How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. How you are cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations. For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the farthest sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High." And note, as God's right-hand man, his job was to tell everyone about God and his gracious ways. Note, he is called the anointed cherub who covers in Ezekiel 28:14. From the tabernacle built from detailed plans God gave to Moses, we know that as a covering cherub, Lucifer stood at the side of the throne of God, and from this intimate relationship with the Creator, he would communicate how good and great God was to the rest of creation. And note, why would Lucifer turn on God? He had looked into the eyes of love itself. The reasons may not ever be fully known. There is no sense in it. Perhaps this is why God calls it the mystery of iniquity. In 2 Thessalonians 2:7. For reasons that even the all-knowing God cannot explain, Lucifer began to entertain novel thoughts, selfish thoughts, thoughts that led to his downfall. The Bible records God's lament over Lucifer's rebellion. Quote, "How far you have fallen, Lucifer, bright morning star. You said in your heart, I will rise in heaven, I will exalt my throne above the angels of God. I will sit like a king and be like the Almighty. You were once an example of perfection. How wise and handsome you were. You lived in Eden, the garden of God, and wore gems of every kind, rubies and diamonds, topaz, beryl, carnelian, and jasper, sapphires, emeralds, and garnets. You had ornaments of gold. They were made for you on the day you were created. You lived on my holy mountain and walked among sparkling gems. Your conduct was perfect from the day you were created until you began to do evil. You were busy buying and selling, and this led you to violence and sin. So I forced you to leave my holy mountain, and drove you away from the sparkling gems. You were the chosen angel that stood by my throne. You were perfect from the day you were created, until the day you began to do evil. You were proud, and your fame made you act like a fool." Note, Isaiah 14:12-14, Ezekiel 28:11-16. In direct opposition to God's unconditional love, selfishness is the core of sin. The land of the free. When God created intelligent beings, He made them with the power to think and to do, otherwise known as free will. Without it, we would be slaves, or worse, robots, Stepford children, mouthing meaningless and empty appreciation and praise. This wonderful freedom of choice would make it possible for intelligent beings to love and appreciate one another and God Himself. Thus, we are considered God's children, created with this likeness to Him, this ability to love. But there was also a risk in giving individuals freedom of choice. Because we do not live in a vacuum, their choices would affect others. They could choose to disregard God's instructions, they could choose not to love, but to hate and hurt others rather than love them. The question, why did God allow sin? Is intimately linked to the freedom of choice God gave us. Why does God allow suffering? War? Plagues? What kind of God could just stand by and watch the Holocaust? How could he allow that accident that killed my parents, my husband, my child? And similar questions reverberate daily as we watch new horrors and tragedies on the 6 o'clock news. God acknowledges the fact that in a universe of free choice, the eventual eruption of sin was inevitable. Jesus told his disciples, "It is impossible but that offenses will come, but woe unto him through whom they come." Note, Luke 17:1. Also note, the word disciple simply means student. Jesus was called rabbi, which simply means teacher. And note. But the ultimate question is, if God holds infinite power, why didn't he get rid of Satan? Why does he allow suffering to go on? God certainly had the power to silence Lucifer immediately. God created the universe by merely speaking it into existence. With one word, he could just as easily have sent Lucifer into non-existence. Then, had any friend of Lucifer asked, "Where's Lucifer?" he would reply, "Well, he was entertaining some evil thoughts, and I couldn't let them spread. So what did you do?" "I eliminated him." Is that what you'll do to me, God, if I had some evil thoughts? Yes, I'd eliminate you. The word would spread throughout the universe, you'd better do what God says, or he'll eliminate you. So then God would have to take care of that. He'd have to not only eliminate Lucifer, but then wipe out all memory of Lucifer in the minds of the angels. He could do that each time someone had an evil thought, eliminate him, and then eliminate all memory of him. If God really runs a free universe, he could not violate the free will of his creatures. In order to preserve our freedom, he had to allow Lucifer's perverse choice. Destroying anyone who chose evil would not really be freedom. Furthermore, since God knows the future, he knew Lucifer would rebel. Note, in Isaiah 46:9-10, God says, "Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is no other, I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times things that are not yet done." And note, he could have simply chosen not to create Lucifer at all. No one would have ever known, but he would know. God says he cannot be false to himself, in 2 Timothy 2:13.